Hey guys, it's Nathan. This is episode 60 of The Nathan Seaward Show.
The Nathan Seaward Show, inspiring you to live an extraordinary life.
And welcome. I hope you guys are having a great week. Great to see you. And I'm just in Montreal for a few days. I've just been fishing up in northeastern Quebec for the last few days, which has been amazing. Turned the phone off, completely disconnected and refreshed. And feeling really good. Heading to New York this week. And as I said last week, I've got a couple more slots there for coaching available. So offering full day intensives for the time that I'm there. So if you're interested in that, drop me a message. And also you would have seen, if you've been following me the last couple of weeks, I've just launched the Limitless Entrepreneur Adventure Series, which is initially taking place in the Greek islands on August 4th. So we have a sailing trip there that's going to be amazing. We've filled a bunch of the slots already. And there's a few more slots to go, which is super exciting. If you're interested in that, again, give me a message and we'll get you on a call to see if you'd be a fit. It's going to be 1 week on August 4th. And we're going to go all around the Greek islands. There's going to be 6 other entrepreneurs on the boat with us. We're going to be having a bunch of fun, learning to sail, going from island to island, cooking together on the boat, and then, doing a lot of really cool coaching exercises during the week as well. So if you're looking to grow yourself, if you're looking to grow your business whilst having a lot of Instagrammable moments as well, then that might be for you. So again, drop me a message if you're interested in that. Yeah, and just excited to be here with Jackie and Justin. If you're just tuning in, I would love it if you could share this around before we get started. Leave us some comments. It's always much more fun when we have comments, can interact during the show. So feel free to leave any comments as we go. That's it, really. I'd just like to welcome Justin and Jackie. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Nathan.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
I did a sailing trip in the Greek islands a couple of years ago, and it's magical. So,
how was it? Give us a little pitch for the people.
Just crystal clear water, and the water is like a bath. It's just the perfect temperature. The sunsets are just phenomenal, golden, giant, beautiful sky, and just scooting around on the islands is so fun. And all the saganaki and the Greek food is just to die for. So
I didn't even think about the Greek food. That's going to be another bonus.
It's so fun.
Yeah, super excited. I did a sailing trip in the Virgin Islands last month, and now I'm obsessed with sailing. So now I'm trying to get as many people as possible into sailing.
Yeah, any excuse I can get on the boat.
Absolutely. You guys are in Santa Barbara right now?
We are.
Yeah, I came up there about 5 years ago. I did the PCH with a friend. We went from LA all the way up to San Francisco, had a night in Santa Barbara. I just remember it being the most beautiful, magical place. I can see why you moved there.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I was actually on a boat yesterday and whale watching and saw hundreds of dolphins, and we saw 12 blue whales and 10 humpback whales, and I was like, wow, I get to live here. This is, everyone else on the boat was from another country and visiting, and I was like, I get to live here in this paradise.
Yeah, this is home.
Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, have a look at Jackie's Instagram, because I was following you there yesterday, and it was just dolphins, whales, and epic photos of Pacific creatures.
So good.
Yeah, very cool. So thanks for coming on. This month on the show, we've been focusing loosely around the concept of how you can bring more adventure, how you can bring more excitement to your life, to your business, and how that can actually be a huge benefit to your life and business. And a big part of that is what you guys do, which is using the concept of flow, one of the concepts that you use, and using flow to improve your life, raise your consciousness, and thus your mission to raise the consciousness on the planet. But can you give us a bit of an overview of how you view flow, and I guess and consciousness as well?
Sure. What is consciousness? Let's go right for the jugular, straight into it.
Simple. First question, what is consciousness? Go.
Consciousness and the nature of reality. Cool.
No one else has really nailed it yet. So go ahead. Take it away, Justin.
We can get it today on this Facebook Live.
So Yeah, so flow, there's a lot of different definitions of what flow is. It's kind of coming into the collective as a hot topic right now, and something that people are interested in. And it's, we see it really as kind of the next step in our evolution as a species. And it's like a new stage of development that we all have the capacity to enter into. And I'll let Jackie talk about, the differences between what we teach and some of the other types of flow. But how I like to describe how we teach flow is that it's a new operating system for our consciousness that allows us to live in a more limitless reality and experience more effortlessness and flow, and really be able to, thrive on every level. And that's available to everybody too. It's not just for people that, are living in a certain place or from a certain country or whatever, or have a degree or don't have a degree or whatever. It's literally something that's accessible to everybody. And by kind of living by the maxims and going through the process of reprogramming yourself to live in this new operating system, you're able to experience that kind of reality. And it's also, we were having some really deep conversations about this a week or two ago, there's no loss of individuality. It's really about you being you to the fullest extent that you can be, right? Living into your full potential, really giving the gifts that you have to give to the world and thriving as a result of that. So it's really about deep self-expression, and the operating system is universal. So it doesn't require you to change who you are. It really is just kind of like a compass that you get that leads you into flow wherever you are. The compass will always show you where north is or south or east or west. It's like a compass telling you, okay, move over here 2 steps to the left or right. That'll bring you into more flow in any moment. So,
right. So you see it like a new operating system, an operating system for a new world, a new level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And essentially the way we talk about it is different than flow states, which a lot of other people are talking about, which are really kind of temporary states of peak performance or non-ordinary states of consciousness. But they're just that, they're temporary. What we're talking about is more of a way of being. This is really your natural state. So beneath all of the layers of programming and conditioning that we have from our culture, from the media, from, epigenetics shows that, these beliefs and trauma patterns that we have can be passed down for up to 14 generations. So all of this is conditioning us, with a lot of lack, limitation, scarcity, and keeping us in unnecessary struggle and suffering. So flow consciousness is really unraveling all of that, peeling that back so you get to tap into that place of pure potential.
Oh, I love it. That's exciting. There's a couple of comments coming in already. Firstly from Peter. Hi, Peter. And Monique also there saying, love you, Jax. So happy you and Justin are sharing flow.
Yes, love you too, Monique.
Very cool. Peter's got a question there, Peter. I'll come back to your question shortly because I just wanted to give you a little taster, just a little tantalizing taster of what these guys are all about. But before we dive in a little deeper, how do you end up becoming a flow consciousness expert? What leads you to living in Santa Barbara and forming the Flow Consciousness Institute, Jackie? Like, how did you get to this place?
Yeah, for me, it was a long, twisty, windy road. It's not something that I ever imagined I'd be doing with my life. And really, I guess, a critical point in my life was the death of my brother in 2009, which was really a huge catalyst for me. And at that point, I'd done a lot of inner work already and a lot of my own healing and integration. But that was really a big wake-up call for me and a catalyst for my own awakening, and led me on a hero's journey where I left my life as I knew it. I was an autism specialist in New York, had a thriving private practice. And, I just thought, if I were truly living life for me and not giving to everyone else, what would I be doing? And I realized I'd always wanted to do kind of what you're doing and travel around the world. And I had all of the reasons why I couldn't at that point. I had a mortgage, I had a thriving practice, I had kids that needed me, I had all of these reasons why I couldn't live my dream. Then 4 months later, I walked away from my life as I knew it. I packed one bag and got rid of all the rest of my things. And I embarked on a solo journey around the world. And that really was my training ground for learning to live in flow. Because before that, I was a complete type A control freak and really learned on my travels to live moment to moment and to let go of control and learn to surrender. And I really had to tune into my intuition to keep me safe really got to know myself on a super deep level. And on that journey, in preparation to climb Kilimanjaro in 2010, I ended up at a retreat in Australia that completely changed my life. And, a bunch of radical mindset shifts and mindfulness and all of these different things that I learned that are now a lot of the foundation for what we teach. And so it really just kind of was this process of my own self-healing exploration that led me around the world to all of these different mentors and teachers. How I ended up in Santa Barbara, well, in 2015, I was again, I didn't have a home for a few years. I was just traveling the world. And I was driving up the coast of California for the first time. And Justin and I had connected once on a phone call. One of his clients said we needed to know each other because we were both teaching about flow. And we got on a call and it was like, whoa, this is weird. Like, how do you know this stuff? Where did this come from? We need to meet. And when I was driving through Santa Barbara, I was like, hey, we should get together. But then when I got here, I was in so much pain that I ended up in the hospital. And I had a freak abdominal infection, and I was hospitalized for 5 days, which is the exact thing that needed to happen, because as a nomad, I would have just, kind of met Justin for lunch and then kept going. And who knows, it would have been one of those sliding doors moments, like where would our lives be? But no, I was strapped to a hospital bed and he came to visit.
I really appreciated you sharing your journey, because talking about adventure, traveling the world, or doing, what I'm doing, this nomadic experience, this the alchemist, following your personal legend. Well, it's such a good way of helping to find yourself, so to speak.
Yeah, and so many of the greatest moments of my travels have been unplanned. And, just meeting someone and deciding to travel with them for 2 weeks just on a whim. When you make plans, it's really hard to go back and then change everything. So I've just adapted and really learned to live in the moment, which made a lot of other people uncomfortable, because they would ask me, where are you going to stay tonight? And I don't know, I'll figure it out, and I'm sure something will work out. And then I end up on a yacht or, in a castle or something.
Or an alley, whatever.
Yeah, not always fancy.
Yeah, just kidding. She usually ends up in
cool. Yeah, I mean, we day-to-day life can be so routine, or the goal is to make it routine or make it comfortable, whereas travel takes all those options away. You're not in the same bed. You don't have the same comforts. And so I guess in a way it's easier to sort of stay in flow than it is maybe in a more routine day-to-day existence.
Yes and no. I mean, there's definitely more opportunities when you're traveling, but flow is not necessarily quitting your job and traveling around the world. That's definitely one version of it that I've partaken in. But it's also, I get so much joy just pruning my plants and playing with the flowers in the garden. And sometimes it's really just the simple things. It doesn't have to be this incredible adventure. It's really what's the most exciting thing for you in each moment. And sometimes that looks like that for me anyway.
I love it when she vacuums it. We're not in a relationship, by the way. Either.
Let's make that clear.
We live in the same house. We're business partners. So, but it's awesome when she vacuums it.
Important note. Jackie, I'm sorry to hear about your brother. I didn't know that part of your story, but as you reflect back on it now, what have you learned from his passing?
Yeah, death can be an incredible teacher. And, it was the worst thing that I've ever experienced and had to go through, definitely the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced. But now, I see the gift in it. And really, at that point in my life, I was living an amazing life, but it was also on the path to burnout and just working so much and giving so much to others and not putting my needs first. And, that led to a chronic autoimmune condition, and really just not honoring myself in favor of caretaking others. And so realizing, I was kind of faced with my own mortality. And, we just kind of assume that we're going to live, I think I'm going to live to 146. But who knows? Who knows what's actually going to happen?
At least 132.
At least, right? So it was really that wake up. And, the goal is not to have death or sickness or tragedy be that wake up call, to really get people to live full out and really enjoy every moment of their lives. Because too many people are, waiting till they retire to take their dream vacation, or, waiting until they're in a relationship, or there's always something that they're waiting for in order to do the thing that they really want to do. And sometimes we don't have that time that we think we have. So I think that was really the lesson for me, is to really live full out for each moment.
Yeah, so in that regard, an incredible lesson. Obviously a tragedy, but also you made the most of the lesson. I think, one of my goals is to talk more about death, because I think in Western society it's kind of taboo, or it's dark, or it's, it's not something we like to dwell on. But, we had James Butler's fiance, Leanne, was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and just really diving into her journey since he passed away, and how, she came to realize that everything has a time limit on it, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a life. And we forget that, like you say. Not only do we think we're going to live to 136, 134, we also think relationships will last forever, or, the thing will last forever. We'll have the thing forever. And that actually what she discovered through death is that's what gives love real meaning. When you can truly understand finality and death, and that all things end, then you can love fully.
Yeah. And I think also this piece around that things should be a certain way, right? And just letting go of exactly what you're saying, that this idea, this belief that relationships have to be till death do us part, that's just programming. Where does that come from? Or that, children need to outlive their parents, or whatever it is. We have this idea that things should look a certain way. And then when they don't, that's when we encounter suffering and struggle.
Yeah, beautifully put. That I catch myself there even thinking, the death of a child before a parent, it's the ultimate tragedy and all those things. But it is just a belief at the end of the day that that's how it should be, and that if it happens the wrong way, that's a tragedy. And Justin, what about you? What led you to meeting Jackie when she was having appendix problems?
Well, there's so many different points at which you could start. I'm kind of joking to myself. It's like, well, my parents met, back in the 60s or whatever.
What about your grandparents? Both sides.
I know. I completely ignored my grandparents. So I'm trying to think, what's the best entry point? I'll tell my story up until I met Jackie, because she kind of summed it up, what happened since we met, to some degree. So basically, I think the most appropriate entry point is kind of when I woke up to the level of reality that could even allow me to eventually discover flow, and then how I got there. And when I was, for most of my teenage years, I was kind of not eating super well. I wasn't really, taking care of my body or living healthfully. And, I had all these wounds that I had picked up when I was a little kid. Most people have different traumatic things that happen to them. And so a lot of my core wounding was around self-expression. And so that led me to try and want to fit in. And that didn't work out so well, especially because I'm kind of just a rebel anyways. And so trying to force somebody like that into a box is a recipe for disaster.
So then he had a mohawk.
Yeah, I had a mohawk.
Wow.
I was an anarchist. I was, raging against the machine, not the band, but literally I was really passionate activist and stuff. But I was really, angry and kind of mad at the system that I saw as really broken. And that, combined with not eating well and then getting into drugs, all led me to this place where I got to this point where I was really depressed and unhappy. And I was genuinely trying to be happy, but just going about it in all the wrong ways. And it got to the point where I was I was at my wit's end, feeling suicidal, really frustrated, just not happy with my life. And through a series of really kind of incredible synchronicities, or some might even call it grace or whatever, or maybe it was my genuine desire to actually be well, the commitment to that, I came into a number of things that helped me kind of wake up and snap out of that and realize that I should be eating well, I should be taking care of my body, and that I probably was feeling depressed because I wasn't eating organic food, and that, I wasn't meditating, I wasn't doing yoga, I wasn't moving my body in ways that were healthy or constructive. And so I kind of went through this hyper rapid 3-week transformation where I went from eating McDonald's every chance I could get and totally depressed to literally having like waves of bliss roll over my body and eating all organic food and, drinking juice every day and meditating for an hour a day and literally like practicing mindfulness 24/7 and being in these non-dual states. And I literally at the time, I like to think that I was like floating like an inch off the ground or something. And so that kind of showed me very quickly, and this was after years of being on antidepressants and all kinds of stuff like that, that, there was something really special in this direction of like focusing on my personal development, my spiritual development, really taking care of myself, like diving deeper into understanding consciousness. And so that sent me, it was like a huge slingshot that sent me on this journey to really drink all I could from that fire hose. And so I spent the next 6 years just doing everything I could, learning everything I could about, personal growth, health and wellness, meditation, all these different things. And so that put me in a place that when I graduated university, I went to UCSB in Santa Barbara. I grew up about an hour south of here. So after I graduated from UCSB, I kind of had another series of somewhat mystical events when the student was ready, the teacher arrives kind of experiences where I was working at a health food store as like an urban supplement specialist because I taught myself so much about nutrition and wellness and stuff that's what I was doing at that time. And a man came in really late at night and he needed some supplement for one of his friends. And he came over and he started talking to me and he was like, "Who are you?" He just like noticed something that was different about me. I was wearing the Vibram 5-finger shoes when they first came out at the time, so it may have been that. But anyways, we started talking and we got into this really deep conversation about the nature of reality and consciousness and all this stuff. And he's like, "I want you to come back to my office sometime later this week. Let's go to dinner. I want to keep this conversation going." And so we did. And it turns out that this guy was really a master of flow, although he didn't call it that. That concept wasn't really around in the way it is now. Back then, this was about almost 10 years ago now, or 8 or 9 years ago now. And so we started talking and I got to just like witness somebody who was truly living in peak states of human existence. Somebody who really mastered reality, was very successful by conventional means and also very accomplished spiritually and just really a master of life. Like if you think of success holistically, like all these different aspects of your life, like, finances, career, alignment with purpose, health, relationships, really take a holistic view of success. He had mastered all of that. And not only that, but he really was living effortlessly. So when he was telling me his story about all these things he had experienced and accomplished, and I would coach presidents and people would, he got offers, people wanted to pay him $50 million a year to do coaching. He exclusively worked with billionaires. I mean, he was a total freak. And so when I asked him, I was like, how did you create all this? And he's like, my secret is that I go into my office, my meditation room, and I meditate for 40 minutes a day. And I go through this process and I really hold this intention and And he shared like kind of the way he did it. And I was just like, I want that. I was like, that's where it's at. Like, that is how you live. Like everybody else is like hustling and grinding and trying to make it happen and burn out and really just trying to piece things together. And he so obviously had something figured out. And so he mentored me for a couple of years. And then I also just like to be even aware that it was possible to live like that, sent me on a journey to really understand the mechanics of it, because I kind of have an engineer's mind and I really like to know how things work. And, woo explanations of things don't really cut it for me. So I went on this deep journey to really understand, how do you live like this? What are the mechanics? What's the science behind it? How is this happening? So that I could go into it deeper. But then that ultimately led me to a place where I understood that and I had mastery over the mechanics of it. And so I began to start teaching it and sharing it. And then, as Jackie said, one of my clients, she met in New York, and we got together and said, hey, we figured out a lot of the same things on our own. And our sense of humor meshes really well. And that's a deal breaker for us. So it really is. So why don't we get together and write a book and start speaking tour and start an institute, and that, the rest is history. So
you talked about this guy was living in, a peak state type thing. How do you describe that state to someone that hasn't maybe experienced it?
Yeah. Well, we say that, once you've experienced flow, there's no other way to live. So that can kind of encapsulate it. But, and we say that humbly too. We're not trying to brag or anything, but really it's a peak state of experience. And that's why it's so desirable. I think it's our natural state. The way that I would describe it is like, imagine if you got to wake up every day, living your purpose, giving your gift to the world, having a positive impact, having beautiful relationships, having financial abundance, financial freedom to do whatever you want, and really just feeling at one with your environment, everyone and everything around you. And not only that, feeling like life is conspiring in your favor, but that you can finally relax into a deep space of trust that you are supported. You don't have to like live in that constant fear of uncertainty that even billionaires report, where they have all the money in the world, but they're still like scared that they could lose it at any moment, right? So what if you could transcend that and really just trust and feel safe being in your body, just living life on this planet? Not only that, but be grounded in, kind of at its peak, really, you can be in pretty deep states of bliss and happiness. So now, am I saying that I'm there every moment, or that Jackie's there, or that everybody that's living in flow is there every moment? That's the ultimate, target. And so we measure things on a percentage scale, really kind of arbitrarily, but you can kind of calibrate to it. So we like to say that if you can get even 60 or 70% there, like, your life will be amazing. And if you can get higher than that, and we do know people that are living there, and we would consider ourselves to be in that space most of the time, life gets truly amazing. And you really feel just like everything's conspiring in your favor, which is an awesome feeling.
And the thing is, most people have experienced it in moments, right? But they don't know how to sustain it. They don't know how to recreate it. So it's like those moments where life feels effortless or even magical, where you're having synchronicities all the time, and, you say something and then it shows up, or you're manifesting things quickly. And so it's this sense where life is free and easy, and you're just feeling like you can create anything. And most people have some experience with that, or maybe, even mastery over it in one area of life, but not others. And so having an understanding of the mechanics allows them to recreate it.
Yeah, and I love that, Justin, you brought up money as well, because I imagine that's a common objection or something to flow, maybe. And I feel myself as well that, when I've had those peak state moments, everything's been incredible, and synchronicities. And if I just look at my life now, and, if I tried to plot this life out 5 years ago, there's no way I would have ended up here. Yet, when I get challenged financially, that's when it's hard for me to keep in flow or keep the faith.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of people. It's really easy to constrict when money is tight, because money, flow on a certain level is really a path to true freedom. And in our society, money is what most people equate with freedom. Money buys you freedom, but that's just, the most base layer, and it's not actually true, right? Freedom comes from within. But, people find it most challenging often to live in flow when funds are constricted. But ironically, the quickest way out of that scenario is to live in flow. And we actually know people that are really awesome at living in flow, who have kind of like transcended money to some degree. And you could even say that they're broke, but yet they live a lifestyle that is like, something you would expect someone with $10 million in yearly income to be living. But they're so deeply in flow that they receive abundance in different ways, right? We typically think of abundance as money, but abundance is really, the ability or to have the resources that you need to do whatever you want to do, or have the resources that will support you in doing whatever you need to do in that given moment, right? And so abundance can come in the form of somebody gifting you a guest room, or a free ticket somewhere, or whatever, or it can be a trade. We're not saying that that's how it has to be. I prefer to use money as leverage than time, personally. But at the same time, like, that's available to people. And it often, people get themselves in a box and say, I can't do this because I don't have the money. And they immediately shut down their field of possibility from all the different ways that it could happen without them having to use money to do it, or from even receiving money or earning the money or whatever to be able to even do that thing. So, that's another layer of it.
And a powerful question to ask in that moment is, how else could this happen, right? So we have this thing that we want to do, and we think, oh, I don't have the money. So just asking yourself, how else can this happen, invites all of the other possibilities. And just being aware of what your beliefs are around abundance or money, and seeing where you think, oh, I can't get paid to do what I love, or, all of these different stories that we tell ourselves that, are just beliefs.
Yeah, because we have a limited view of what getting paid looks like. as opposed to understanding there's 1,000 other combinations of what getting paid to do what you love might look like. You might just not be able to see them yet.
Right.
Yeah, people will take, like, they go, okay, I'm a coach, and so my money comes when clients pay me, right? But money can come in many different ways. The more open you are to receiving it, the more available it becomes to you. And that sounds really airy-fairy, but literally, like, and this is why we have an institute, because we have to do research into consciousness, is that literally your beliefs, like we were saying, and you're alluding to, will filter out opportunities. They literally, because of the experience of confirmation bias, right? You're literally projecting what you want to see versus actually seeing what's available to you. And so you actually cut yourself off from seeing ways in which you could make more money, or it's all around you.
Yeah.
Sometimes just asking for the thing, right? It's so many people, they say, oh, I want to go do this thing. And, it's like, just ask. Sometimes, there's a way that you didn't even imagine, or volunteer. There's always another path.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jackie, because the way I hear it as well is that it's a form of control. I want to control how it happens.
Yeah.
And control is kind of the opposite of flow or surrender, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you can give up controlling the how and just be open to that taking care of itself, so many more combinations of things can come to you.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on that too, though, since we're in an organic conversation. The idea of, like, because this is subtle, but I think it's important to state, like, the idea of control, like flow being the opposite of control. But what I would say is that flow is actually the perfect balance between control and surrender. Flow is like an integration, because people sometimes get caught up in the idea that to be in flow, you have to just completely surrender and you let go of everything and you kind of just shoot your sailboat, to use an out metaphor, out into the ocean, and the winds will take you wherever they take you. But that's not actually the truth. Like, there is a paradox in that, we're constantly dancing between control and surrender all the time. That's the polarity that's available to us. And so we want to assert will when it's appropriate to assert will, and we want to relax and let go when it's appropriate to let go. So we want to use the right tool for the job. So running a company like we do, like I run multiple companies, just completely surrendering would probably not work super well. When you have to manage large teams, if you need some structure, it's beneficial, right? But at the same time, you can have too much structure where then the organization becomes inflexible and it actually limits your capacity. So you need to have what we call dynamic structure, and you can apply that to your life too. And as we teach the principles, they really allow you to kind of know what lever to pull in any moment, so that you always are either using control if that needs to be used, or surrendering if that needs to be used too.
Yeah, great point, because I think you're right. That's a common one of, do I just, I don't know, extreme example, do I just sit around at home and just be in flow, waiting for everything to happen to me? But there is a mix of action.
Yeah, we call it taking inspired action. So living in flow,
I like that.
Just like lying in a hammock all the time and stating your intentions and waiting for things to show up. You're taking inspired action from a clear and centered place. And then, you're, like Justin said, there's a balance. And so it's knowing how to calibrate to that is the practice.
Yeah, totally. There was a really famous Silicon Valley VC and angel investor, started an angel list, that was just posting about this, and he was talking about how to get rich. What's his codes for wealth, and he's extremely wealthy. But the essence of what he was saying is that, like, it's really, at the end of the day, it's about doing exactly this. It's about inspired action and doing work that you actually enjoy. Like, that's the key. That's one of the keys. There's 9 core keys to flow, but that's one of the keys. Is like really like letting your inspiration guide you forward. It's not that you have to hustle and grind to be successful. You don't have to do that. And the idea of hustle and grind only exists because it's like you're doing something that you don't want to be doing to have ultimately what you want. But it's like, you can just go directly for what you want and let that be the path. And then it doesn't feel like a hustle and grind. Then it feels like an adventure, which is like exactly what you tell people to. It's like, let's make life an adventure,
Yeah, much more exciting. I want to circle back to Peter's question. So Peter asks, I'd be interested on your thoughts on how flow correlates with the Chinese concept of Tao or Taoism.
Yeah, great question. I'd say it's totally in sync with it. We actually, that's oftentimes how we describe what we do versus flow states is that ours are much more similar to what we teach is much more similar to the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, which is, right, effortless action, non-doing, art of non-doing, right? It's a paradox, just like we were just talking about. So I would say, although what we teach is also more than just the Taoist conception of it, but that's a really good way to summarize it quickly. And it is really about, living the Tao, and the Tao Te Ching is a great book. I think that one of the main messages of the Tao Te Ching personally is integration. It's always talking about the opposites, and you go, which one, which side? But it's
the balance point.
Exactly. What they're trying to say is you need both, It's like both of these things are required for you to enter into the Tao or to become the Tao, however you want to conceptualize it. So that's what we teach in flow, is that integration is super important. A lot of people like to go, it's really, hot in the conscious community now to be like, oh, the heart, we have to shift into the heart. We have to shift into the heart. It's like, great. Most people are imbalanced towards the head. So yes, we do need more heart.
The same with masculine and feminine. There's, so many people doing men's work and women's work, but where's the integration? And that's, a conversation that we were just having last week. And so anytime you're getting stuck in the polarity, you're not in the integration, which is the most important piece.
Yeah. So yes, most people need balance in terms of the heart, but what you really want is the best of the heart and the best of the mind, because that's when you're able to have full capacity. Because if you just go into the heart, you lose a lot of the brilliance that the mental plane brings, and you lose a lot of that brilliance. And we would even argue that you want to take both and upshift into intuition, which is even the next level of capacity above just having the heart and the mind as your guides through life. So.
Yeah, it's a concept. I'm sure you teach a lot about this in the courses you do, but for me in my coaching, it's about range. So if someone's all in the mind, okay, maybe we want to live in the heart for a few months and see how that feels and see what comes up. But ultimately, the middle path is the place you want to end up.
Yeah, it's getting the pendulum to swing in the opposite direction. So we have a principle that's doing the opposite of what you normally do to help bring that back into balance.
Yeah, do the opposite of what you normally do. Seeking balance. Seeking balance. So you can go pretty wide with do the opposite of what you normally do, which is cool. It's going to be an adventure for sure, but you can get yourself into some sticky places as well. So we always tell people, use that one with the other principles.
Yeah. I always love too when you do that, just the unexpected things that come up, which is kind of why you do it, right? Because we have a belief of, if I live too much in my heart, then ... if I live too much in flow, then ... And it's like, well, okay, let's experience that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, and then see, and then to notice all the unexpected things that come up that challenge that belief.
Totally. Yeah. And it's really too about, and as a master coach, I'm sure you know, this is really about, it's not staying in your comfort zone. A friend and mentor and advisor on our board talks about this idea of the growth edge, that you want to kind of be within a few degrees of your growth edge, before it or after it at any given time. Because if not, then you end up stagnating, and then your life tends to start to go, straight instead of up. Like one thing that is present in all of nature is, constant evolution, constant change, right? And so flow on one level, to come back to the Taoist conception of it, is really, we can learn flow by studying nature, studying the natural world. And so, change is really one of the only constants. And so if we're embracing that, doing the opposite of what we normally do is going to keep us kind of self-reflecting and not, letting ourselves hide from the truth that we may need to transcend something that we've been in for a while.
Love it. So Sherry Hollander says, for me, wonderment that it is all really happening for me. I trust that I'm always supported, even when it doesn't look like that. Thank you, Justin, for coaching me and realigning my point of view during a dislocated time in her life.
Yeah, it's such a powerful perspective shift that really all life is happening for your growth and evolution, even the things that don't seem to be going well. And that's, there's another misconception about living in flow, is that it's all rainbows and unicorns and that you never encounter any tough times or challenges.
Yeah, Justin gave a few examples of this guy lives in flow and now he's a multimillionaire, but it's not necessarily always that.
Yeah, well, it's even, so how we were saying how we came together was because I ended up in the hospital. And that was a really difficult time for me. It was one of the most painful things I've ever been through. A scary time because I was in a new city. I didn't know what was going on with my body. They put me in those big donut CAT scan machines. So it was pretty scary. And in that moment, I had to really come back to what I know to be true is that, there's a bigger purpose for everything. And sometimes we can't see it. And so knowing that, helped me get through it and with a sense of humor, even. Don't have an abdominal infection around Justin, though, because he made me laugh too much and it was painful. But knowing
having a good sense of humor.
That all of the things that are happening to us, there's a reason or there's a gift in it. And that needed to happen in order for Justin and I to spend time together. So that allows you to have a different perception of your challenges, of your struggles, of the things that aren't going well in your life, or even the things that you don't love about yourself. Even your shadow and these parts of yourself that you want to change are often your superpowers. So it's just shifting your perception around that and finding the gift in it. It can be so powerful.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing I've noticed lately as well is that sometimes it doesn't help to try and figure out what the reason is. So, I love the belief that everything's happening, for a reason bigger than me, that maybe I can't understand. Then I notice some of my clients will go, well, I think the reason is this. I think this is why it's happening. And I think that can become just another form of, control or trying to figure it out. I love the Steve Jobs quote from his that commencement speech is, we can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
So I think it is, although it could be an interesting conversation to try and say, hey, I got, an appendix infection. I think it's because God wanted me to meet Justin or whatever, but it's not necessary to try and figure out what the reason was. Just use the belief and flow with it.
Yeah. And sometimes you never find out, and sometimes you do, and it's further down the road, but just trusting in that radical trust is a complete game changer.
Yeah, radical trust. I love that. And Jason says, inspired action. Love it. Brett Francisco says, fantastic conversation. Thank you, guys. If you've got any more comments or questions for Justin and Jackie, we've got a few more minutes with them, so fire out any more questions you might have around this. Justin, you touched on something that I find interesting too, is how do you bring this concept to business? I know you guys work with entrepreneurs and businesses a lot. So how do you translate flow consciousness to business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's one of the areas that's really fun to play in part because it's the most challenging. I mean, there's definitely, key things that are really important, but on one level, there's principles that apply in all sorts of situations, and that's like the foundation of the flow. So those just translate into business in somewhat nuanced ways. But there's another layer in business too, which is like and this is like what I was talking to at the beginning, which is that flow is like an individual experience. It doesn't require you to lose your uniqueness. Every organization is different. We're in different markets. We're serving different customer bases. Some are B2C, some are B2B, and so on and so forth. So there's also a customization element too of tailoring the flow strategy to what works in your business and the personalities that are, in leadership and so on and so forth. But beyond that, besides all of that, what I would say is that one of the key access points for flow in business on a lot of different levels is really intuition, and really learning how to use intuition as the driving force in your organization versus ways that it's been taught, which are very rigid and in the box. And, they've been successful in a lot of ways, but they've also been successful in destroying the planet and so on and so forth. So, there's a new era emerging. And I love that you mentioned Steve Jobs just a minute ago, because he's such a vocal proponent of intuition, as are many, many very, very successful and influential and impactful people. In fact, I was just making a list of all of them this morning because we're just getting ready to publish more research and stuff like that. So billionaire Naveen Jain.
Yeah, I got to ask him at a mastermind whether, where he falls on the spectrum of, in his decision-making, if he uses more intuition or more strategy or rational mind. And he said 100% intuition.
Wow.
He closes his eyes and feels into whether it's something he should do or not do. And, that's exactly how we operate. And, so often when we're operating from our rational minds, we're limited to, so-and-so says to scale my business to 9 figures, I have to do it, through this particular way. And we get locked into a box of thinking this is the only way it can happen. or like reading Richard Branson's autobiography and then doing everything he does, but you're not Richard Branson. And, so you can benefit from learning from other people, but not getting locked into a rigid structure of it has to be this way, and really tuning into what is the way that feels most aligned for you.
Right. That's one of the cool things about studying with my first mentor was that I got to watch someone build a thriving business. And, coaching was just one of the things he did. He was also a consultant for all the top universities in California and ran training programs all over the place and a speaker and all kinds of stuff. And so it was like, I got to watch someone break every traditional business rule and still be wildly successful. And I've had the pleasure of seeing that happen many times in my life. And so what I've learned is that, you don't have to play by the rules, that it's really, there's a million ways to create $1 billion, billions of ways to create billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. It's really, you designing what's right for you. And more than that even is really listening to your intuition, using the right tool for the job in the moment and not being rigidly attached to something. So I think that's the next frontier in business. And there's a lot of people that are on the cutting edge that are saying that. And I think we're going to start to see, hopefully as our work moves more out into the world, more of that. And also the next generation, the next wave of businesses that are, social impact, for profit, for human good, having 7 generations thinking and really, considering what's best for all life, being driven by intuition, because when you really listen to intuition strongly, it's hard not to do something that's moving the needle forward for humanity in a lot of ways. So
I love that. So yeah, intuition's a common theme in what you're saying. Derek Sivers has a great quote where he says, when you create a business, it's your opportunity to create your own personal utopia. There are no rules. You get to create a business around what you love and what you believe. And the other thing he says is that many businesses are just trying to impress an invisible panel of Harvard MBAs.
Right.
We're trying to just do it, follow the rules, trying to do it right and have a CEO and have this corporate structure, but it's completely unnecessary.
Yeah. And what's funny about that too is, like, I would even say that people are just trying to impress where people are at. Like, up until, actually Bezos is the richest man, but Amazon's not the richest company. Apple still holds that position. And what Steve Jobs did was he actually overshot people's expectations by a large margin to get there. So a lot of common business knowledge is trying to tell you, cater to your customers' needs and wants, give them exactly what they want, just ask them what they want. But it's like, if you ask the majority of humanity what it wants, humanity doesn't really know what it wants. It doesn't necessarily know what's best for it. AKA the reason why we're, potentially facing large-scale climate change and destruction, and we're poisoning the planet. Like, if we knew it was best for ourselves when we were doing it, then we might have a very different reality. So the point is that, like, you need to a lot of times be out in front of the curve, right? To really develop a truly successful business, especially in this day and age. Like, you need to be innovating. You need to be ahead of where people are at and see where people are going. So it's very hard to do that if you're only making data-driven decisions and you're pandering to where people are at. You actually really have to tap into that field of intuition and the unknown and pull your ideas from, the future, which sounds crazy, but it's actually very doable.
That's where all innovation comes from. Are these things that are not linear and are so inconceivable. Those are the greatest ideas. So the ones that just seem so impossible, these moonshots. But that's what really moves the needle.
Yeah, totally. They're just in that field of infinite possibilities, and that's where greatest companies are being birthed these days. So.
Yeah, I've read recently that, your business, like you said, Justin, it still needs a structure. You still need to have a plan out in front of you. There's people that rely on you, but there should be a part of your business, a division, a percentage of your profit that is dedicated to just wild, moonshot, random ideas based on intuition.
We've got like 3 minutes left. So that's a whole. I wouldn't exactly say that. It's more about having a fluid structure for your business. You definitely want to incubate innovative ideas and stuff like that. But if you're in the plumbing business or you're in the sponge manufacturing business or whatever it is,
great business.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to be like what we would conceive of as like as sexy as a Tesla or social. But in its own way, yes, you want to kind of. There's a way to do it where you're letting your intuition make the decisions and letting that guide you. And you can still use data. Again, it's always about integration. That is awesome. There's a lot of great things that have been developed over the last, few hundred years how businesses can run efficiently. That's all great. You don't need to leave that behind. But it's really about, using intuition as your compass versus using the rational logic of mind.
Yeah, and not getting attached to that rigid structure or the way that you're doing something, because so many people think, oh, well, I started doing it this way and now I have to continue with that because I invested time, energy, resources, all of this. And if it's not working and your intuition is telling you to do something else, like you follow that. But people get locked into doing things that they started and a structure that they created, whether it's working or not. So it's not being attached to that.
I have a million more questions, but I'm going to stop. If people want to work with you, I know you guys have a bunch of different ways people can work with you in a mastermind sense. You do a lot of speaking and events. You also have online courses. But if people want to learn more, or if they want to bring this into their business or into their lives, what's the best way to find you guys?
Yeah, so we have kind of 2 access points right now that are the best way to go about it. So we do run like an ongoing flow training program that people can enroll in anytime. It's an online evergreen group training program. You've got, I think, Flow Consciousness on the screen. You can find it through there. There's links on our homepage to go check it out. We're also launching a brand new in-depth masterclass training. It's going to take, and this is kind of really just the service level. We're going to do a really focused deep dive into like some of the core fundamentals of living in flow, and that's free. And so you can sign up there at flowconsciousnessinstitute.com and find out about the programs if you want to jump in and get started right away.
Yeah, it's really deep and nuanced. So to get into it in such a short time is challenging. But in the masterclass, we'll go really deep into it.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's given us a nice little taster, but you can also see, what the benefit would be of working one-on-one with you guys and being able to, be followed over a period of time to try and help guide someone through this in their business. Very, very cool. Oh, thank you, guys. So we got 1 minute. So the last question is around your dark side, crowd favorite. How do you relate to a dark side? Do you have one, and how do you embrace it? Maybe 1 minute each.
Go for it.
My dark side. It can be really sarcastic. It mostly comes out around Justin, and we turn into like 5-year-old siblings around each other. And sometimes we take it a little too far. So there's some playful jabs. I also have some art. But
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Justin is my muse, and I make these funny side-by-sides of him, and sometimes not so flattering.
Yeah. Famous historical figures. Other people have fallen under her ire with that too. I've actually not gotten most of it.
I now have apprentices who have taken it up as well. So
you're passing on your dark side.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
inspiring
like the Empire,
others.
The Empire in Star Wars. Was it? So for me, it's my dark side. What was I going to say? How do I relate to it? So, like, I think this is part of also, collapsing the duality around the dark side. It's bad. Let's see it. Whereas I see it like these days, especially like before, I used to be afraid of it, and it was like scared the shit out of me. And every time I'd go there, I'd feel really intense emotions, and that's why I started, using drugs, is because I was like, oh, I don't like what I'm feeling, But now for me, I actually get excited about, what would be considered shadow work or the dark side, right? Like, is that for me, it's like the path to freedom, and to embrace that and to see like these limiting beliefs or these old patterns, or, if I get angry at somebody or get in a fight with my girlfriend or whatever, like what is trying to resolve itself? What is trying to let go? And I even, and I also laugh about it too, because I truly sit in that place and everything is perfect. So even when I do get upset or angry or whatever, like there's, obviously I don't want to do like any harm to another person. So I'll apologize when that's appropriate, of course, and I'll try and make amends. But at the same time, like I also embrace the perfection of it. And that, sometimes people get pissed off, and, Jesus got mad and broke tables and stuff. And so, if Jesus is having a hard time maintaining it 100%, I think we can all kind of chill out a little bit and love ourselves.
And that's a big part of what we teach, is really diving into those shadow emotions and things that we don't want to acknowledge are there, because that is really where the freedom is. And, the more you're willing to go into the darkness, the more of the light that you get to experience, and that expands your range, and you get to play in a broader spectrum. So
yeah, I love that. So it's looking at it in terms of it's an opportunity So it's, when you get angry or when you're triggered, that's an opportunity to look. It's a new place to look.
Totally. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Beautiful. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming on. I love this conversation. I could keep going on and on, but I think you guys are really at the cutting edge of something that's long overdue, and especially bringing this to business and using business as a vehicle for good. So thank you for sharing it. I hope lots of people reach out to you and dive into this work because it's so valuable.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes.
And hope to see you in New York next week.
Absolutely. Yeah. See you in New York next week. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, thanks for tuning in. If you think someone will enjoy this, I think it's a great message. I think it's really valuable stuff, what we're talking about. So if you think someone will enjoy this, share it around, send it to them, and I'll be grateful forever. So thank you so much. Check out Jackie and Justin's website, flowconsciousinstitute.com. And until then, I'll be back next week with episode number 61 of The Nathan Seaward Show.
That was The Nathan Seaward Show, inspiring you to live an extraordinary life.